Tonight on All In.
We're not going to pull an Alex Jones. I stand by everything I said. They are treasonous. They are traitors. They should get the death penalty.
She's a 9/11 truther, a race-baiting conspiracy theorist, and the newest member of the Trump Brain Trust.
You are a very opinionated lady, I have to tell you that, and in my opinion, I like that.
Tonight, the Republican nominee and his alarming associations.
I have concerns about her rhetoric and her hateful tone.
Then Kamala Harris calls for round two.
I believe we owe it to the voters to have another debate.
As another Bushy endorses the Democrat.
I think that Kamala Harris is a better choice in this particular election.
Plus, the Harris campaign battleground director on where this race stands 54 days out. And Democrats give the self-proclaimed leader on fertilization a chance to prove it.
They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization.
When All In starts right now. Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The country just marked the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on America that killed 3,000 people. Donald Trump attended a remembrance ceremony in Lower Manhattan. And as his guest, the ex-president brought a conspiracy theorist who says 9/11 was an inside job. Her name is Laura Loomer, and she joined Trump and running mate J.D. Vance as they took photos with firefighters. You cannot make this up. You really wouldn't want to. It's heinous, also sadly unsurprising. For almost a decade now, Donald Trump has used his political platform to channel the worst, most vile, discredited, and disgusting rhetoric, ideas, and people, and mainstream them into American culture. From reposting Nazi trolls during his 2016 campaign, to defending some of the torch-carrying, sig-hailing neo-Nazis as very fine people in Charlottesville when he was president, to whipping up violent far-right gangs and extremist militias like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Trump has dined with neo-Nazis, courted Holocaust deniers, and endorsed conspiracy theorists of all stripes. In fact, just today, get this, NPR reported that a Nazi sympathizer who served 3 years in prison for storming the Capitol on January 6th was an honored guest at 2 different events at Trump's Bedminster Golf Resort. And yes, that is the photograph of the alleged Nazi sympathizer, if you want to take that in. At one of those events, a fundraiser for the January 6th criminals, Trump addressed the crowd by video, saying, all of the people there, that includes the man you see there on your screen, all of the people there, you're amazing patriots, have a great time at Bedminster. Hope that guy had a good time. Trump has also forged a bond with far-right billionaire troll Elon Musk, saying that if he's elected, he'll put Musk in charge of a government efficiency commission. And this week, when pop star Taylor Swift endorsed Trump's opponent, Musk responded by posting the creepiest, truly unsettling sexist taunt to her on social media platform he owns. Trump cleaves to the absolute worst, most dangerous people. If he becomes president again, it's going to be even worse. Laura Loomer is Exhibit A. The two seem to be rather inseparable lately, spending a lot of time together. That's her coming off his private plane. In addition to being his 9/11 guest, she accompanied Trump to Tuesday's debate in Philadelphia. She's been seen with him in his Bedminster Club, and her name has been on Trump's lips for much of this year.
A friend of all of ours, and this woman is amazing. Laura Loomer. Where is she? Where's Laura? She is amazing. A fantastic woman, a true patriot, Laura Loomer. Laura, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
It's great to have you, and you've been really very special. You work hard, and you are a very opinionated lady, I have to tell you that, and in my opinion, I like that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
all of your support, and you've been terrific, and everybody appreciates your support.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to sit with you today. It's a pleasure. You're the best. I love you.
It's a cute video, like they genuinely seem to really like each other. Now, many Republicans are expressing concern to reporters about Loomer's closeness to Trump, which you can see for yourself. Everyone who works for him thinks she's a liability, one Trump ally said. Others have told reporters that Loomer has contributed to some of the most outrageous conspiracy theories Trump is now using as campaign fodder. Now, even in the very large pantheon of Trump sycophants, Loomer is a chilling figure. A history of racist and Islamophobic comments. She first gained notoriety for chaining herself to the door of a Twitter office in New York to protest the website banning her after she spread false conspiracy theories about multiple mass shootings. Before that ban, Loomer also tweeted hateful bile about immigrants, responding to a news story about thousands of migrants dying while trying to cross the Mediterranean to safety. She posted, quote, "Good, clapping emoji, here's to 2,000 more." After Elon Musk bought Twitter, Loomer was, surprise, surprise, reinstated on the platform. That's where she called 9/11 an inside job last year, arguing that Donald Rumsfeld helped stage it to take over the national security bureaucracy. Twitter is also where this past summer, Loomer called Kamala Harris a drug-using prostitute. Around that time, as Donald Trump was praising her at rallies, what a patriot, Loomer also called for the death of Trump's perceived political enemies.
I truly believe that the people who engaged in the coup against Donald Trump and have caused, civil unrest and chaos in our country for the last 7 years through Crossfire Hurricane and also through these what I believe are illegal witch hunts against the president of the United States right now, unconstitutional witch hunts against Donald Trump, they are treasonous. They are traitors. They should get the death penalty when they are jailed in the next Trump administration.
Death penalty in the next Trump administration. In advance of the debate last weekend, Loomer also tweeted that, and I quote her here, "If Kamala Harris wins, the White House will smell like curry." The kind of thing that you hear from maybe a second grader who's not particularly enlightened on the playground. A jab at Harris's Indian heritage that is so racist that it got called out by a fellow Republican who said, quote, "This is appalling and extremely racist. It does not represent who we are as Republicans or MAGA. This does not represent President Trump." That Republican was Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yes, the Jewish space lasers lady.
Her rhetoric and her tone does not match the base, does not match MAGA, does not match most Republicans I know, and I am completely denouncing it.
Curious what J.D. Vance and Usha Vance think about that as well. I haven't heard from them on it. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has denounced it. Now, in truth, Loomer is just deploying all the same rhetorical tactics that Greene and others in the MAGA movement, including the guy at the top of the ticket, Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance have used and use every day. It's not any different. The bigotry, the deflections, the calls to protect free speech, you've heard it again this week as Republicans continue to spread an incredibly vile and honestly dangerous lie, falsely accusing Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, of stealing and eating house pets. All week, city officials have said it's a lie, it didn't happen. And guess what happened today? You'll never guess what happened today. Yes, the Springfield City Hall and other municipal facilities were shut down after receiving a bomb threat. Haitian families in that community are now keeping their kids home from school and staying home out of fear of racist violence. One woman who said her car had its windows broken and acid thrown on it told a reporter, "I'm going to have to move because this area is no longer good for me. I can't even leave my house to go to Walmart. I'm anxious and scared." That's the real toll from the racist lie that has been pushed by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. And it's a lie Trump is still repeating just in the past few hours.
The migrants are walking off with the town's geese. They take in the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen. This can only happen. These people are the worst.
It can only happen in your mind, right? Again, it's a disgusting lie. I think most people, when they hear this old man ranting about it, know it is. It's based on a false rumor that started on a Facebook page, spread like wildfire late last month. After a speaker at the Springfield City Commission meeting warned that, quote, "crime and savagery will only increase with every Haitian you bring in." And that man turned out to be a leader of a neo-Nazi group calling itself Blood Pride. He was immediately kicked out of the meeting for his racist rant. But guess what? Now, Blood Pride's talking points are the talking points of Donald Trump and the presidential campaign and the entire Republican Party. The Blood Pride guy ranting about the Haitians at the local committee meeting is now the voice of the entire Republican Party. Republicans understand that the lies they're perpetuating about immigrants leads to violence against immigrants. And you know how I know? Because I heard it from a very close confidant to Trump named Laura Loomer.
Every damn day we see another story about illegal aliens going to the Ritz-Carlton, illegal aliens getting free flights, illegal aliens getting free clothes and free cell phones, and someone's going to snap. Someone's going to snap. It's going to happen. And you know what? I'm not going to care when it happens. You know why? Because there's only so much people can take.
She wants someone to hurt them. It all reminds me of what President Joe Biden has repeatedly said about his decision to run against Trump in 2020. Biden said he wanted to run because of Trump's defense of the neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, the ones chanting "Jews will not replace us," the very fine people in Trump's words. Biden said correctly that he was in a battle for the soul of the nation. Biden may be out of the running, but that battle does continue today. Donald Trump has always been an organizing and rallying force for the absolute worst people and tendencies in the country. The people that march with torches, the people that show up at the local city council meeting to spew racist bile, the folks that bash cops' brains in and carry a Confederate flag into the Capitol, the people that throw around vile racial slanders against both immigrants and Kamala Harris. This is not just guilt by association, okay? She's flying on his plane. He's using their rhetoric. He is choosing to empower people like Laura Loomer. Those are the sorts of people who will enjoy greater power in a second term, I promise you. And of all of the reasons to prevent him from winning another term, that might be the most important. Congressman Dan Goldman's a Democrat of New York. He served as lead counsel in Donald Trump's first impeachment and assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, and he joins me now. What do you think about the Republican nominee bringing a 9/11 truther? Again, she posted this last year. This is not, 20 years ago in a dorm room. A 9/11 truther to come to the 9/11 memorial observances in New York.
It's remarkable, Chris. I was there yesterday morning, a couple seats down from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and it is an incredibly solemn experience if you've not ever been there before. You had the former president, the current president, the vice president, all there watching and memorializing the victims who died that day. And they died from a terrorist attack from Al-Qaeda at the time. And Laura Loomer has also espoused fan groups for ISIS, another terrorist group. And I think what it goes to show you is a couple things. First of all, Donald Trump has no respect for this country. He does not care about this country. He does not know what a patriot is. And he only cares about himself. He is notorious for having talked about, right as 9/11 was happening, about how if the World Trade Center falls down, then one of his buildings will now be the tallest in New York City. That's how his mind has always worked. But your point, I think, about who will be near him and empowered in a second Trump administration is vital. And it is why so many of the former Trump administration officials who have worked with him, who know him best, who know him privately, who were responsible for our military and our national security and promoting global democracy around the world, they all want Kamala Harris to be president. They are all supporting Kamala Harris. And that should tell you everything you need to know.
You represent a district that is a multicultural, multiracial district in the great city of New York. I know because you're my congressman, and you have a lot of immigrants that you represent. Immigrants that have, in some communities, in some parts of Chinatown, who have been the subject of slander, the subject of anti-immigrant violence, called dog eaters, through the years, have faced this kind of libel. What do you say to them? What do you say to your constituents, to others, when you see the most powerful and prominent Republican, and all up and down the line, repeating this kind of thing?
Well, it's pretty simple. Vote Democrat. But in addition to that, just think about how many people, how many groups of people, how many ethnicities have been disparaged by Donald Trump in the last 8 years. He banned Muslims just simply because they're Muslim. He ridiculed the Chinese American population, and when COVID happened, and caused a more than 300% increase in anti-Asian hate in my district because of his rhetoric. Now he is attacking the Haitian community, who has endured that country has just suffered from horrific incidents over the last several years, and deserve none of this. It's a blatant lie. But what he does is he preys on the underserved. He preys on those who don't necessarily know our system the best, don't speak English as well in some cases as the Asian American community in my district. And he will try to use them to stoke fear, division, and hate among all Americans, solely so that he can win and try to stay out of jail. It is cynical politics beyond anything that we have ever seen.
Let me ask you a question closer at home. Mark Molinaro, he's a Republican colleague of yours in the New York delegation. He's posting today along these lines. There it is, the picture of supposedly a picture of a Haitian carrying a goose, like the whole nine. What do you say to that? This isn't just Trump. This is someone that's in your, he's in the New York delegation. He's a colleague of yours.
Yeah, he's a colleague who advertises himself to be a moderate Republican. And what this kind of rhetoric exposes is that Trump has completely taken over the Republican Party. We've seen it in the House this last Congress. We saw it just recently this week when Trump said that we should have a government shutdown if the Democrats don't agree to a preposterous bill that the Republicans want to put forward. And what you're seeing with someone like Mark Molinaro are the true colors. They can pay lip service to being moderates as much as they like to, but they fall in line behind Donald Trump every single time. And in this case, they are using his lies, his slander, his bigotry, his racism to try to win an election. And Josh Riley, who's a fabulous Democratic candidate up in New York 19, is ready to serve the American people, not serve Donald Trump. And that's why it is so important that everyone gets out to vote in November.
Congressman Dan Goldman of New York, thank you very much. Coming up, the rogues gallery from the Bush years now lining up behind Kamala Harris. That's next. With just 54 days to go until the election that could send Donald Trump back to the White House, all your favorite Republican characters from the Bush administration are coming out of the woodwork against their party's 2024 candidate. So today, George W. Bush's Attorney General Alberto Gonzales published an op-ed in Politico endorsing Kamala Harris.
I think about who is most willing to work to unite our country. And in making that calculation, for me, it's fairly easy. I view Kamala Harris as someone, based on her rhetoric and her history, as someone most likely to be dedicated to try to unite America. I don't see that discipline, that willingness in Donald Trump.
Gonzales now joins a list of more than 200 Republicans who previously worked for both Presidents Bush, McCain, or candidate Mitt Romney. Last week, they were joined by Harris's most prominent Republican endorsers yet, Liz and Dick Cheney.
Because of the danger that Donald Trump poses, not only am I not voting for Donald Trump, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Dick Cheney will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Even those who haven't gone so far as an endorsement are putting Donald Trump on blast, like senior Bush advisor Karl Rove, who penned an absolutely scorching takedown of Trump's debate performance. Quote, "There's no putting lipstick on this pig. Trump was crushed by a woman he previously dismissed as dumb as a rock, which raises the question, what does that make him?" Tim Miller served as the communications director for the 2016 Jeb Bush campaign. He's now a writer-at-large for The Bulwark. Alexi McCammon is an MSNBC political analyst and the host of the new podcast, In Sync, and they join me now. Tim, the Bushies are really getting the whole band back together. What's going on?
I know all of the progressive viewers of this show just really love it. You know, Alberto Gonzalez is on the team now.
We got
Scooter Libby's next. Get excited. Here's the thing. It's like not a close call. So to me, it's more like, what is Donald Trump giving these people? The answer, if you're talking about a rank and file kind of rich person, is tax cuts, I guess. But, if you're an ex-government official, and you're still making over $600,000, you're right, like the idea that 2% on your, taxes makes that big of a difference. I guess maybe it's that. But if you look at everything else, Trump is planning a 10% across the board tariff. He's planning mass deportations, which say what you want about the Bush administration. That's the opposite of the policy that they put forth. He is planning to cede Europe to Russia. What is he? He's offering these people nothing on policy. And Kamala Harris has run a campaign over the past 6 weeks to 2 months that has moved to the middle on some domestic policy issues and on national security issues. She sounded like somebody in the bipartisan consensus of the country about having to support allies, support our military. It's like the only complaints I've heard about Kamala Harris foreign policy have been from the left about some of her comments about Israel. So, what are these people? So to me, it's more like, why is it only Dick Cheney and Alberto Gonzalez, not why is it Dick Cheney and Alberto Gonzalez?
Well, and it's also striking. The other thing that unites them and, the sort of throwback Thursday aspect of this, Alexi, is that these are, Alberto Gonzalez doesn't have a future in Republican politics. He's kind of just going to do his thing. Karl Rove is not going to be working in another White House. Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, basically, to her great credit, destroyed her future in Republican politics, at least in the MAGA era, with her choices. So the further you get away from future ambition, when you're talking about, Dick Cheney or Dan Quayle, the former vice president, the more honest people are, which is yeah, he's terrible and we're not going to go for it.
Yes, and I don't want to be too hopeful or Pollyannish, but I wonder if we are seeing a tiny, tiny, tiny semblance of a post-Trump Republican Party or a post-Trump future that Republicans are sort of seeing after this second debate. If the first debate showed Democrats that Joe Biden is not up to the job, this second debate showed the entire country, but especially Republicans who have otherwise been willing to bend for Trump, that this man, the emperor has no clothes, the emperor has no plans, the emperor has no ideas, he lies, the facts are crazy. It's almost as if, and this is also reinforced by the fact that he's surrounded by Laura Loomer, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is coming out against him and that association. He's almost losing this party that he has built and treated as a toy or an accessory for the last 8 years to himself. And now it's almost like they could see whether he loses the election or he's in prison or he flees the country because he wants to avoid that. They're almost seeing a potential future without him.
Well, that's interesting you raise that, because I do think if he loses this election, well, I don't know. God knows what the future will bring. I mean, the thought that I would be sitting at this desk covering a 2028 election with an octogenarian Donald Trump as a nominee for the Republican Party makes me want to put my head through this glass desk.
Don't even put that in there.
But I wonder how much the calibration of whether he's going to win or not affects these incentive calculations, Tim. Because what you saw a few months ago, right around the RNC and after Biden's bad debate performance, it was a lot of we're coasting to victory and what cabinet position, a lot of sucking up to him. I do think that self-interested people make decisions based a bit on how much they think the person's going to win.
Yeah. And as much as we think this stuff's about great principle, a lot of times, Chris, and it certainly is for Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, so we can put them in a box on the side. For some of these other retired folks, it's about the hassle. Yeah. Honestly, it's about the hassle, right? Alberto Gonzalez now is going to get emails from some of his friends who are Trump, who still want to work for Trump or who really like Trump, and they're going to be mad at him. I spoke to one of the 200 people on that list that you mentioned in the intro, one of the more prominent ones, and she said that she got a call from a former Bush cabinet secretary upbraiding her for putting her name on the list, right? So there's a hassle element to this, but the more, and so it's kind of like if you thought Trump was going to win anyway, why deal with the hassle? And I think now you can sort of see the momentum moving into Harris's direction, where it's like, okay, I can handle a couple of nasty grams at the club if I can do the right thing, and we know that it's going to end up or we think at least it could end up in a better result.
Alexi, your point about the debate. Harris says she wants another debate. Trump equivocated on it today. He came out with a, sort of typically all caps deranged statement about how he's not going to do another debate. Some post polling we have, Morning Consult has Harris up by 5 points. There's others that show different things. This will shake out over the next week or two. But what do you think about Trump closing the door today on another debate after having kept it open for a while and Kamala Harris definitely being down?
He's taking his ball and going home. He wants the great Jesse Waters, a renowned journalist, to be the host of the next debate that he wants to participate in. That would be a complete joke. I mean, Trump is literally taking his ball and going home because he knows he lost. He will not be embarrassed by a black woman again, especially on national television. And honestly, the more that Trump puts himself out there, the more he loses. I mean, his polling goes down the more rallies he holds, the more speeches and press conference he holds, the more debates he does poorly. It's not in his interest to do it, but what will be amazing, we'll be seeing Kamala Harris and her campaign taunting him, goading him, bullying him, essentially, into not doing a debate through the rest of this election.
Tim Miller and Alexi McCammon, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ahead, Vice President Harris heads to North Carolina for her first post-debate rallies. What it will take to win that elusive battleground state next. Vice President Kamala Harris just wrapped up a rally in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's her second campaign event in that same state today. North Carolina is a place that was identified very early, first by the Biden campaign and now the Harris campaign, as a real possibility to flip from red in 2020 to blue this November. And right now, the polling there is just absolutely neck and neck. The New York Times polling average shows Harris up 1 point, effectively a tie. In fact, the New York Times polling averages show a lot of tied races. Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada are all evenly matched, while Harris holds a 1 point lead in Michigan and a 3 point lead in Wisconsin. If past is prologue, many of these races should come down to extremely narrow margins, and victory could come down to just a few thousand extra votes. Joining me now is the man in charge of finding those votes, Dan Cannon, Battleground States Director for the Harris-Walz campaign. Dan, it's great to have you on. First, I guess my first question to you is, we always want to think that you guys have some special data that you get to see so you can see the future and we can't. And generally that's not the case, but I will ask if you have seen anything in data or anything out there in the world in those battleground states in reaction to that debate in the aftermath of the debate.
It's a great question, Chris, and there is no magic ball, unfortunately. There's no crystal ball to look at the elections and what's going to happen. But we do look very carefully at the data we get, both from our own campaign and research. But the stuff that I think is the most interesting and instructive to me is the qualitative and quantitative data we get from our reports from the field. We have a big operation, more than 2,000 staff, more than 300 offices across the battleground state. In North Carolina, 26 offices. And we talk to voters at the doors. Tens of thousands in a state in a given day, millions of contacts every single night across the battlegrounds. And they tell us something, both qualitatively and quantitatively. And a couple things that we know. They really care about Project 2025. It comes up a ton. They really care about reproductive freedom and reproductive rights. It comes up a ton. And we hear all the time, and last night, and then again today, and at that rally anecdotally, is what the vice president did last night in laying bare Donald Trump's ownership of the issue of destroying rights through Roe v. Wade, and her impassioned answer on what that means to women and families in this country resonated and shook through folks directly. And so we hear that at the doors, we see it at the rallies, and then the result of that is that today, with tens of thousands of folks in Charlotte and Greensboro, 5,000 new volunteer signups coming out in just those two events gives us more ammunition to talk to voters across the country.
Yeah, this is from some NBC News reporting on the state of North Carolina that for months the Biden team insisted North Carolina was within reach. I know that for a fact. I heard them say that. But Biden struggled to overtake Trump partly because of his failure to motivate younger voters. Now the Harris campaign says it's seeing an unprecedented rush of volunteers in the state, especially young adults. Since Harris became the presumptive nominee, another campaign official said more than 20,000 new volunteers have signed up. Officials said nearly 2,000 North Carolinians signed up to volunteer during Tuesday night's debate, with the number you just cited, almost a quarter of them students at campus watch parties. It does seem like the bullishness on North Carolina is now bearing out in the data. Like, it is clearly in the same category as the other swing states, right?
I think it is, Chris, and I think we've thought it could be and should be this entire time. It was a 1.3% margin for Donald Trump in 2020. That's 74,000 votes. The demographics are a little better there since that 2020 race. And when I was running the state in 2016, it was about 3.5%, right? So we've cut that margin one cycle to the next. We think we have a chance to cut it here. And I think the other part about North Carolina that's really interesting is Mark Robinson and the kind of extreme campaign. You mentioned Laura Loomer. And Trump hanging out with her at 9/11, which is pretty unbelievable. But Mark Robinson is another one. He hugs Mark Robinson every time he goes to that state. Mark Robinson literally thinks that the world was better off before women could vote, and he says that a lot. And so I think pairing that kind of sentiment, which is clearly, born of Donald Trump's politics in that state, is something we think will work with voters. And when you talk to people at those rallies or at the doors or in our offices for volunteer events, you hear it all of the time. It cuts through. It is real. And that effort on the ground to make it real and to connect those dots is what I think can win a close election.
How worried are you about Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, like the other 7 or so states that you highlighted at the top of the segment, Chris, is going to be really tough and really close. It has just been a very close state, as frankly have all of them this cycle. The good news is the vice president has a strong record. She's got a great record with labor. More than a dozen labor organizations have endorsed her. She spent time in Philadelphia and done really well with exciting rallies there. And then tomorrow going to Johnstown Altoona Market and then to Wilkes-Barre for a rally in the evening shows that we're willing to go to all corners of that state, which I think you have to do to win a tough and complicated state. But really all 7 of these states are going to be just very close. We're never going to feel comfortable in any of them. And I think that organization has to continue to drive forward in all of them. We do have multiple pathways because we're competitive across the battleground. But every one of those states, Chris, I think is going to be close.
That's certainly the way it looks. Dan Cannon, thank you so much for making a little time for us tonight.
Thanks, Chris.
If you want to hear more about the efforts to flip North Carolina, you can scan the QR code on your screen to check out the new episode of my podcast, Why Is This Happening? I got to sit down with Anderson Clayton. She is the head of the Democratic Party in North Carolina. She's in her mid-20s. She's the youngest state party chair in the country. Really fascinating conversation. You don't want to miss it. Still ahead, Democrats call Trump's bluff on IVF. Senator Tammy Duckworth joins me on that next.
I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
A leader on fertilization. Donald Trump clearly has no idea what the I and the V stand for, but he is desperately trying to erase the history of how his actions have put in vitro fertilization at risk in this country. You will remember, Alabama's highest court ruled that frozen embryos are children, leading multiple clinics in the state to pause suddenly offering IVF for fear of breaking the law. And the Alabama court only was able to make that ruling emboldened by the Supreme Court justices that Trump appointed that had overturned Roe v. Wade. The state court cited Dobbs in the opinion. It flowed from Dobbs. Now, state lawmakers quickly passed a bill to undo the ruling, even in deep red Alabama, because IVF is a widely used treatment, popular across the political spectrum. But now Trump is trying to pretend he's some sort of savior, even though the Dobbs decision is what opened the floodgates here. He's promising to make IVF treatment free. Now, that, of course, would likely take an act of Congress, so Democrats are wisely calling Trump's bluff. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is going to force Republicans to vote for a second time on a bill that protects access to IVF, a bill they blocked last time. I'm joined now by the lead sponsor of that bill, Senator Tammy Duckworth, the first senator to give birth while serving office. Both of her children were born with the help of IVF, and she joins me now. Senator, you have been a crusader on this issue for a long time, obviously very personal to you. I'd even call you a leader in fertilization if I had to.
Don't tell my husband.
It's a weird phrase. I think we could all agree. Yeah. It's wild to watch this desperate attempt to pander that's totally at odds with what the Republican Party is actually doing. You've tried to pass multiple bills on IVF. What do the bills do, and what has happened before?
Yeah, I've tried a couple of different bills. This one that we're going to vote on next week will do some very simple things. It just guarantees the right to access reproductive technology. If you want to seek, it basically sets up a statutory right across the entire country, no matter where you live, that you have the right to access assistive reproductive technology, including IVF. And that if you're a doctor and you want to provide it according to accepted medical standards, you can provide it. Doesn't mean that you have to. So if you work in a Catholic hospital and a Catholic hospital doesn't want to provide it, they don't have to. But if you do want to provide it, you have a statutory right to provide it. It also allows insurance companies to cover IVF. In addition to that, there's two additional provisions. One is
I think we may have lost a senator. The internet gremlins. I'm hoping that we can get that internet back.
Oh dear, I'm still
She's
here.
on a roll.
I'm
there you
still
are.
here.
Good, we got you.
I'm still here. Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, so it's Access IVF, but it also covers with Patty Murray that she wrote the portion in it that allows military men and women to access IVF, and then it also mandates the biggest employer-provided insurance plan in the world, the one for federal employees. It mandates it to cover IVF.
Okay.
So very simple. If they support IVF, vote for the bill.
That sounds like a great bill in the substance. I would vote for it if I were in the U.S. Senate. Do you think? I mean, last time around you got 2 Republican votes. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
You
Senators
think
Murkowski and Collins.
Do you think you're going to get more than that this time? You think Donald Trump's going to be out there whipping for this?
Well, he says he's a leader on fertilization, that he's going to bring us IVF. All he has to do is tell his Republican, my Republican colleagues, his Republican minions in the Senate to do what to vote for it. I mean, he stopped the border bill by telling them on the eve of the agreement to not vote for it and tank their own border bill. Well, all he has to do is just tell Republicans vote for this, and they'll vote for it, and then we'll have protections for IVF, and people can actually start the families that they want to start.
That is a great point. When that border bill came out of negotiations and it was announced, and there were probably anywhere between a dozen to maybe 20 Republican senators who were on board and were going to vote for that, he came out and he killed it in 24 hours. And once he killed it, Mitch McConnell turned against it, John Cornyn turned against it. They basically pulled their own bill. So you're right. This is a challenge. If he's serious about this, whip Republicans to vote yes. Get them to vote yes. They'll listen to you, right? He should do it.
He should do it. I mean, frankly, all the stuff he's saying now, he's like the bank robber, right? He's robbed the bank, and now he wants us to give him, he's stolen our reproductive rights, and now he wants us to give him the reward because he knows who the thief was. It's him.
Yes, and let me say something also about this, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. And one of the things that I find a little maddening, there's this gaslighting going on where Republicans are like, what are you talking about? None of us are against IVF. We love IVF. But it's like, no. The people in your coalition who set their sights on Roe don't like IVF. They want personhood amendments. There are 4 Republican states that have personhood statutes. 17 others have debated similar legislation in recent years, all of which would arguably imperil IVF. This is from the Politico story today. Hundreds of thousands of embryos, each of them as fully human as you or me, this is their belief, are created and then destroyed or frozen in IVF procedures. This is the president of the Pro-Life Action League. So, there are actual very committed people who hate IVF, who want to see it made illegal, who are in the Republican Party coalition and have a lot of influence.
The folks at Texas Right for Life says that if you want to do IVF, you have to implant.
I wanted to hear the rest of what the folks at Texas Right for Life were saying, but I loved talking to Senator Tammy Duckworth when the internet gremlins were not attacking me. Thank you, Senator. All right. Next up, I've been waiting for this for a long time. There's a lot of buildup here because I have a big, exciting announcement to share with you all. I don't do this a lot, but I'm going to do it tonight, so don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
And look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris.
out.
That moment in the debate got a lot of attention, right? Not only does Donald Trump sound like a deranged maniac and what he's saying is a racist lie, it's an invented story, and it's one that he keeps repeating wherever he goes.
The migrants are walking off with the town's geese. They take in the geese. You know where the geese are? In the park, in the lake. And even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen. This can only happen. These people are the worst.
Again, it's a horrible, racist, disgusting, even dangerous lie. Eventually, I fear it's going to get people hurt. But that lie he's repeating, the lie he said in the debate, is intentionally sticky and resonant. And when that is the case, we here have this question about whether we should cover it or debunk it, because by doing so, you're directing more attention to the thing that he wants attention on, which has been truly the paradox of the entire Trump era. It's something we wrestle with every day. And I would even say that feeling of having our attention compelled by something we don't want to put it on is the defining experience of our entire lives in this era, in the 21st century. Whether it's Trump ranting or the little casino-style attention machines we carry in our pockets that ping us with notifications day and night. It's also what I have spent the last 3 years thinking about and researching. And in fact, I wrote a book about it. The book's called The Siren's Call: How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource. It is about how attention became the most important resource of our time, and how the constant extraction of attention from us is driving us all a bit insane, producing a widespread experience of deep alienation, warping both the shape of democratic debate and public life, like the immigrant lie, and the most intimate parts of our inner lives. I mean, attention, what we pay attention to, is the substance of life. And we live in an era in which the world's most powerful forces and corporations are trying to take it from us in every last instant. The book is going to be released in January of next year, but it is now available for pre-order. You can read about it and pre-order it at this website, sirenscallbook.com, or by scanning the QR code on your screen. And I'm also going to be doing a special event with a really brilliant writer I admire named Andrew Morantz, The New Yorker, and that event will only be available for folks who pre-order the book here in the U.S. It's going to be a great conversation. I would love for you to join. Also, I will admit, because I work in the attention business, you will be hearing a lot more about this book in the months to come, I promise. That is all in on this Thursday night. Alex Gersh Night starts right now. Good evening, Alex.
I mean, you wrote a book. Listen, I'm writing a book too.
I know you are.
That's not like I'm not done with my book and pre-selling QR codes with the pre-order thing, and your book's going to be in every airport, like bookstore, on the bestseller wall, and it's so awesome. And I know I'm going to read it and just feel so defeated.
No. You're gonna, no, and you got it. Run through the tape. I'm cheering you on in whatever mile you're on.
No, it sounds amazing and so brilliant. I can't wait to read it. Congratulations,
Appreciate
my friend, in advance.